Hello and welcome to our Wednesday webinar. Today we are going to be showcasing how to edit your Moodle ISU courses. My name is Paul Lynch, and joining me today are Mark Cooper, Ryan Randall, Sasha Johnson, and Kim Tompkinson. Our presentation is going to be about 20 minutes, and that includes a question and answer session at the end. I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to Mark, who's going to discuss Moodle ISU course formats.
Thank you, Paul. Let's talk a little bit about formats that you could use in your Moodle course. And to do this, you want to first go to the settings. And this is on the main menu within your Moodle course. Select that. And then scroll down to a section called Course Format and the Format drop-down menu. And so here's where you will select from one of the 4 formats that we have listed in the Moodle. And we recommend using just the last 2, the topics and the weekly format. And those are the 2 that we're going to be talking about in my section today in the webinar. So let's begin by talking about the weekly format. The weekly format, the date usually begins with the first date of the classes for the semester. So when you receive your Moodle course, it will already be formatted as the weekly format, the default for Moodle. And the first day will be the first day of classes. And then every other consecutive week will be formatted for the weeks to the end of the semester. The exceptions might be if you're teaching a late 8 course. So that might have a different start date than the first date of the semester. One nice thing about the weekly format is that the weeks highlight for students. So in the left side navigational panel, where it lists all the different weeks, you'll see here that it highlights the current week for the students. And this is just a nice navigational feature that students can have so that they can go directly to the current week. Next, we'll talk about the topics format. And the topics format is if you want to have a different look to your course, you don't want to have it organized by weeks, but maybe you want to have it organized by the topics within the subject that you're teaching, or maybe you want to do a modular type of format. And in this case, you would use the topics. When you use the topic is going to format like it is here with the topic, number 1, that's the default. And then you could go in and you can, by clicking on this pencil, you can edit that to be whatever you want. Module 1, intro to composition or whatever. So that is the topics. And basically you would just go through and you would just customize your course for those topics or modules. Unlike the weekly report, it will not automatically highlight for students where they are in the course. In order to do that in the topics format, you would have to manually present that. To do that, you would just go to the 3 dots that are at the end of the section title. Click on that, go down to highlight, select highlight, and then it'll show in the week that you want to manually highlight. And so you have to do that throughout the course. Those are the 2 formats that you could use in Moodle that we recommend. I'm going to turn it back over to Paul, who's going to talk about activity and index order.
Great, thank you, Mark. So within our courses, we have 2 ways that we can change the order of our activities. What you'll first need to do is toggle editing on. The edit toggle will be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Next, I'm going to go to the course index, and that will be the panel on the left part of your screen. What you'll do next is you will put your cursor over the activity you want to move and look for the plus icon with the arrows on the right side of the activity name. What I'm going to want to do is I want to drag the What is Quality Matters activity and place it above the Start Here activity. To do so, I'll place my mouse over that activity I want to move. Again, look for that plus icon, and then I will grab the activity and move it to a different place within that module. So we can see after this is done, I've placed that What is Quality Matters activity above the Start Here activity. Because I'm changing the order activities in the course index, these changes will also appear in the activities listed in the middle course sections part of our screen. And that'll be this middle part of your course. Let's say I want to move the What is Quality Matters activity back to its original location. What I can do is from the course sections, I can grab that activity and move it back to its original location. To do that, I'll put my cursor in the activity block so we can see we have this block here that contains the activity information. What I'll do is when my cursor gets into that space, it'll change to that plus icon that we saw before. When I see that, that tells me that I can then drag that activity and move it into a new location. So when I make a change in the course sections regarding the order of our activities, that will be reflected in the course index and vice versa. So any change we make to the course index order will also be reflected in our course sections. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to Ryan, who will discuss the block drawer.
Great, thanks, Paul. I'll go ahead and advance the slide. So the block drawer is a panel that can slide in and out from the right side of the screen in a Moodle course. So here's an example without it opened up. Then if you click on that small caret up in the top right, usually underneath where your profile photo appears, that will open it up. This is the same location where if you have a lesson or a book, that same panel will have the table of contents for a lesson or a book. But what I'm going to focus on right now, same place on the screen, is the different blocks that you can add to that. So what you can do in that block drawer is you can add different blocks like news. You can see we have the latest news in this course. We have a calendar. Just barely cut off at the bottom of the screen, you can see that I could search the forums if I wanted to try to find a certain word or a post or a person. So these are different types of functionality you can augment your course with. And the way that you do this is, of course, you'd go to the edit mode first and turn it on, much as Paul was showing with what he was just telling us about. You click on add a block, and then you'll see a list of all the ones available to us in Moodle ISU. It's actually longer than fits. So when you see this, you'll have to scroll a little bit further down. But I went ahead and chose the top one, the Accessibility Plus toolkit for this demonstration. So you'd click on that, and then it would appear in the block drawer. And this image is showing you where it appeared in the block drawer when I could still edit it. What I did before I took this was I hid the calendar because it took up a lot of screen real estate and I wanted to be able to move where it was, much as Paul was showing us how you can move blocks elsewhere in Moodle ISU. So I used that little gear. Previously, I hid the calendar block, so then I could move this one around, and I moved it above the calendar, as you can see. The other things that you might want to do, if you're doing a research heavy course, you might want to put in a text block. This is where you could add links or other things. Here I'm demonstrating it with links to some of the library's research guides, as well as some journals that might be particularly relevant to a course. So these are some of the different uses you could make of the block drawer. We have a list in the Tiger Tracks, our knowledge base, of some of the other common blocks that you might want to add, or of course, ask us if you'd like. But for now, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sasha, who can tell us about adding activities and resources.
Great, thank you, Ryan. So to add an activity or resource, again, we need to find that edit mode toggle, and it's in the upper right here where you can see it. And we toggle edit mode on, and then you can see that once you have editing turned on, you will get an add an activity or resource option at the bottom of each week or topic, depending on the course format that you've selected. So when you select add an activity or resource, you will get some different options of all of the activities and resources that are available in Moodle ISU. So you can see that I'm on the all tab, but I could also just look at the activities and I could just look at the resources. All of these items here also have this little I that you can select, which will tell you more about that specific activity or resource and also provide a link for more help. From here, you can choose to add the activity or you can return back to the selection pane. So I'm just going to go back to that and also show you that there is an option to star things. So when you select the star for an activity or resource, what that will do is it will add this starred tab, and then you can just see the items that you use most frequently. So if I use the assignment and the quiz and the page a lot, I could just star those activities. And then every time I come into Moodle, it's going to default to the starred tab when I go to add an activity or resource. So that can make it easy to find what you need when you need it. So let's go ahead and just select an activity to add, and I'm just going to choose assignment here. And when you select the activity, you will get a dialog for adding the new activity or resource to Moodle ISU. So here we can see we're adding a new assignment to this week of August 22nd through the 28th. Most activities and resources will have a general section. I believe all of them will. So you'll have a place to give it a name and a description. The assignment is a little bit different here because it also has this option for activity instructions. And this can be used for providing instructions to students when they add their submission. So the description would be a more general description of what they're going to do in this assignment. And then if you wanted to, you could add specific instructions that students will see after they select add submission. So if we scroll down this page, we can see that we have a whole bunch of other sections that are available for the assignment tool. And most other activities and resources will also have similar sections. The availability section is where you will set when submissions will be allowed and a due date. The cutoff date here and due date act a little bit differently. So the due date says when it is due, but then students can submit late after that due date. The cutoff date prevents students from submitting after that date. So you could give them a grace period. The remind me to grade by is an option that you can enable to be notified to grade the submissions. And something new with Moodle 4 is this option for a time limit. So here we can see there's a 30-minute time limit. And I've decided I always want to show the description, which was that general section information. But then if you did have a Word document or a PDF or something that you did not want students to see until they start that 30 minutes, that is where you would want to put those activity instructions. Submission types is another section that you have with assignments. So you can choose whether you want your students to submit a file or online text. And if you have them submit online text, you can limit the words. You can limit the number of files students can upload if it's a file submission, as well as the maximum size they can upload. There is also an option to limit the accepted file types. So if you only wanted to accept Word documents, you could limit it to that. The grade section is, of course, where you set your maximum point value for the assignment and how you will grade it. So the grading method does offer a few different grading options, and I believe we will have a Wednesday webinar on grading guides and rubrics later this semester. So that might be one you want to tune in for or watch for announcements. Simple direct grading means you just enter points for them. Your grade category relates to your grade book and how it is set up. And you can also set a grade to pass. So we can see that students need to score 80% or 80 out of 100 or better to pass this assignment. There's also an option to use grading workflow, which is helpful if you want to release all of the grades at once. You can use grading workflow to say that right now I'm grading, and then once I'm done grading everything, I will release those scores to students all at once. Common module settings are going to be a familiar section for all activities and resources. The availability determines whether or not you want it to be visible on the course page. So there's show on course page and there's hide. There is also an option to make available but not shown on the course page. So what this means is students won't see it on the course page, so you will need to provide a link to get to it from somewhere else. You can have groups in assignments, so students can submit in groups. One student can submit on behalf of the entire group, and you can grade and push those grades to all members of that group. Lastly, I wanted to mention activity completion. So you can determine what determines whether or not this activity or resource has been marked complete. So with this assignment, I have chosen that students must receive a grade and they must receive a passing grade for this to be considered complete. Quizzes, you can also do the passing grade, and things like resources such as URLs will have the option of students manually marking them complete or being marked complete when they select it to open it. Lastly, when you're done with your settings, you would save and return to course if you want to go back to the course main page, or if you want to preview the activity or resource, you can choose save and display. Here I've chosen save and display so that we can see the description. So here is the general description. Why are students doing this assignment? What module or course learning outcomes does it provide practice for or measure mastery of? That's the general description. And then if I were a student in this course, if I was a student in this course, I could choose add submission, and that's where I would see the activity instructions. Another thing I wanted to point out here is the settings tab. Once you've added an activity or resource, you can select it to open it, and then you can always get back to those settings using the settings tab. The other way that you can do it is from the main course page with editing turned on. You can select the 3-dot or kebab menu and select edit settings to get back to those settings and change them, which could be helpful if you want to change the dates on assignments. But I'm going to pass it over to Kim, who is going to talk more about ways that you can edit all of your dates at once.
Thanks, Sasha. So the dates report allows you to change dates set on activities in your Moodle course all in one place, and it can be a game changer. You'll find the dates report by selecting reports from the menu and then selecting dates from the menu that appears. Then, after you selected dates, the weekly sections or modules for your course appear, and you will need to expand them all at once or expand one at a time to see the dates that are set on activities and other items in your course. So just to note, it's important that if your course has a high number of activities, it may take a while for them all to show. And so continuing to click on that expand all button won't do any good. So you just have to be patient and wait. So for that reason, we recommend that you expand only one section at a time so that it doesn't try to load everything at once. So if you expand one module or week at a time, you can edit the dates for all the activities and items in that module or week all in one place, all at one time, and then move to the next week or module section and edit those. An alternative is to filter by activity type and then expand all of the modules. So when you're in the activity filter, you select the type of activity that you want to look at first, and then it will show all of those type of activities or all of those activities in all of the modules in all of your courses if you expand all of your modules. So at that point, you can edit all of the dates for that particular activity all in one place, all on the page. For example, if you selected the assignment activity and expanded all of the modules, you'll see all of the assignments in your course with their dates, which you can then edit. You would then move on to the next activity type of your choice by filtering once again, editing the dates for that activity and so on. So I like to select maybe quizzes first and edit all of the quiz dates, and then I'll move to discussion forums and I'll modify all of the discussion forum dates and so forth. So once you've edited the dates in your course, be sure to save changes for the new dates to take effect. And this button will appear at the very bottom of the page. One final recommendation when creating assignments or activities in your course is to avoid making references to specific dates in the description and or the instructions text boxes in the settings. Then you won't have to edit any dates on those items when importing course content from one semester to the next.
If you would like to learn more about Moodle and accessibility or any other topics related to those two, you can access a number of support resources that we've put together. We have a collection of Tiger Tracks articles. We also have a ITRC video library on YouTube that will eventually house this webinar, but previous webinars that we've done in the past. You can meet with anyone at ITRC simply by emailing or calling the ITRC, or just coming down to the lower level of the library to meet with an ITRC representative and talk about your course. Be on the lookout for future Wednesday webinars that we will be hosting, and you can find those in ISU Today or checking the ISU events calendar. Thank you very much for your time today.